Terms and conditions. It's hard enough to read them once. You want me to read them again? We all know at some level it's important to read terms and conditions for online accounts and services we use. But from what I hear, most people never even do that. But for people who at least read the terms and conditions at sign up, reading updates to terms and conditions is a pain. Today I want to show you a way to make it much less painful to read terms and conditions updates, though it will require that you have a saved copy of the old terms and conditions as well as a powerful text editor like Visual Studio Code. The way I speed up the time to read updates is by comparing the text of the old and new versions to see exactly what has changed so I don't waste time rereading all the stuff I already agreed to. We just want to know what actual terms have been updated. I'll show you how that looks. So I'm going to switch over, just give you a preview of what it looks like comparing text of different versions in Visual Studio Code. You can see everything in red and green. The red is the old that has changed. Green is what is the new text, and you'll see I'll get into the specifics later, but you can just see what's the same is white, and everything that's changed has been highlighted. And you can see on the right a little overview of which parts are the same and different. So you can see here, even within these green highlighted paragraphs, really there's only a little bit that's been added. This one little line here. Out of the whole paragraph, this little line, hire and rate yourself, has been updated. So that's a preview of what we're going to be doing to be able to compare. And now when I'm reading the updates, I'm not reading this whole thing again. I am reading just what has changed, which is very, very little. And that's how we save a ton of time to read updates to terms and conditions. So back to the script. It's best to have a copy of the terms and conditions saved as a text file with a TXT file extension. But if you don't have that, I'll show you how to convert it from PDF or HTML to a text file. In this video, I'm not going to cover every tool available and every variation of terms and conditions formatting. This video is just going to give an idea of what I do, and I'll leave it up to you to access about how you go about accessing these tools or trying to use tools you have to accomplish a similar thing. If you do have a specific question, let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can help, give any assistance, recommendations. The two tools that I'm going to use in my tutorial here are a PDF viewer. I'm going to use Okular, as well as Visual Studio Code is going to be my text editor, which is what I have open right now, and also I'm going to use its version comparison feature. And my operating system is Linux. You might have Windows or Mac. Visual Studio Code should work fine on either of those. There's a version available, and both operating systems have other PDF viewers. You might even be able to get Okular on those. I'm not going to cover installation, how to install these different tools or set them up or anything like that. You can look for that information in other tutorials. I'm just going to give you a demonstration of how this actually works. So first, I'm going to switch over, and the terms I'm going to be referencing today are from Upwork. This is recent terms update that I received. I use Upwork, and as you can see, it's just a lot to read. Now, this isn't the longest I've seen by a long shot. There are much longer terms and conditions to read, but you can also see they have many little subterms, which is a lot to go through. So these are the terms I'm going to be using. You can see the website where you could also access these particular terms if you wanted. It's a public website, public page. I will show you three ways to save the terms and conditions, because in order to do what I am going to show you, you have to have the terms saved on your computer in a TXT format. So the three ways, first one is you can just click the download button. In this case, there is a download button right at the top. You click download, it downloads the terms to your computer. You go find those probably in the download folder. The second way that you can, and I guess I'll just show you how that looks. Go to downloads, terms, can be right there. Double click it, it's going to open it in your PDF viewer, and you'll have a PDF version saved. Okay, close that. The second way that you can save the terms and conditions to your computer is simply by selecting the text, copying it, and then pasting it into a text file. So we're going to do that. I go to the top, left click with my mouse, begin to drag, and I just come to the bottom of the screen. It's going to drag all the way down. And then once I'm at the bottom, I release the left button that I clicked. Now there's two ways I can copy. I can either right click, and this first option here on my web browser, Brave, is copy. So I can click that, but you'll also see at the end it says Control plus C, CTRL plus C. That's the keyboard shortcut for copying that you can also use for quicker. So copy. Now I'm going to go back to my folder. Let's go to Visual Studio Code and right click in the top and click New Text File. In this file, you can right click, come down to the option that says Paste. You can also use this keyboard shortcut Control V. And we now have all of that text that we copied from the website. We have now copied and pasted that into a text file. You can click Control S to save, or you could click File, Save, and I'm going to call this New Terms 1. Save it as a plain text. You could also save it as an MD markdown. It wouldn't break anything. Click Save, and that is the second way that you would save the terms and conditions. We can access everything here that we need, and this is perfect. This is exactly what we need to be able to compare text with Visual Studio Code. The third option for how to save the terms and conditions is right-clicking the page and clicking the Save As option. So we can left-click to unhighlight the text, and now I'm going to right-click with my mouse, and the option that says Save As, you can also click Control S to do the same function. Save As. Also, under Downloads, I'm just going to save this as New Terms 1. And you can see it's a .html file. That means that it's going to save an HTML version of the website. Click Save. And again, we can see that on the Downloads page. We have New Terms HTML. I'm just going to grab that and bring it over, copy, paste. You can So I'll just do the same, right click, copy, and bring it into this working folder that I have. I'll just rename that new terms 1 PDF. So now we have new terms 1 txt, we have the PDF form that we saved, and we have the HTML form. I'll just show you, if I click on how, I'll show you how each of these is going to open. So for the new terms, the terms.txt, I will open it with, I'll just keep it consistent, Visual Studio Code. So this is what it looks like when you open it in Visual Studio Code. The PDF, I'm going to open it with Okular. You can see how that looks. It's the PDF version. Now I'm not going to cover how to work from HTML in this video, because the way Upwork is set up with its terms, when you save this particular page as an HTML, it's not saving this page and this information. What it's doing, it's saving some kind of a broader page that encapsulates all of these different files and things. But when you go to open it, it doesn't actually open to this page. It opens to some kind of preceding page that shows links to all of these, and then these are still saved off, or you still have to access this on the website itself. It's not saved. So I'm going to skip the HTML version, but if this was another site that didn't use this kind of site structure, you would be able to save the HTML file and then reference that to copy it or read it later. But I'm just going to skip over that, and we're going to move along to the next bit. So typically you would want to save both a PDF or an HTML version and a TXT version. And the reason for that is the PDF version retains pretty formatting that's easy to read, and the TXT version is just the raw text, which is what we need for the version comparison. So what we're going to need for this to work is we have to have, and this is critical, we have to have an old version of the terms and conditions that we can compare against. Because if we only have the new terms and conditions and we don't have a copy of the old, then we don't have anything to compare it with. So if you don't have the old, if you didn't save that before they changed, you can try to search online. Sometimes I've seen companies, organizations that will post previous versions of their terms and conditions. Many don't, so you might be able to find an archived page somewhere, but that is an option. You can try to search. If you're not able to find one, then I'm sorry, this method isn't going to work for you. And just following that up, always save the terms. If you want to be able to do this, you always save the terms when you first read them. When you're first signing up, when you're first accessing a new service, you want to save the terms using one of the methods that I recommended above. And I would recommend saving both a version that's easy to read, like a PDF or HTML version, as well as a TXT version for easy comparison. And as I mentioned earlier, in order to do the comparison, we're going to need both versions, the old version of the terms and conditions and the new, in a TXT or text-based plain text format for comparison. And it's best to use the same method of saving them, saving each version in the same format, so that when it comes time to do the comparison, you have the new version in the same format as the old version, and it's easier to just quickly do the comparison and not have to waste a bunch of time converting stuff. But even if you have to convert, it's not that big of a deal if you have the right tools. And if you only have a PDF or an HTML version of the previous terms or the new, I will show you how to convert that in this video as well. So to start, I'm just going to show you the ideal situation where we compare the versions of the TXT file with Visual Studio Code, VS Code, and we'll jump to that now. So this is what they look like. But how do you get here? Well, I'll close this. So we'll just have the script open. And I'll even go as far as closing the script so you can start off the same place that you would be if you were to do this for the first time. So let's say you saved out your terms in a TXT format. That's what we need. I've already done the new terms here and formatted it to make it look a bit nicer to read, as well as I have converted the old terms into a TXT format. So I've got old terms, new terms, these two files. And what I want to do, opening this with Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to right-click this folder. I'm going to click Open With. It's going to let me choose what I want to open this folder with, and I'm going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. So you can see now on the left that we have just that folder that we opened, read terms and conditions faster, and read conditions updates faster. And we have, again, the new terms and the old terms, just as I showed you here. New terms, old terms. We also have new terms, old terms. So the way that I'm going to do the comparison in Visual Studio Code, I don't know exactly what version this is. If I look at help quick, this is version 1.101.2. Okay, so that is the version of Visual Studio Code that I'm using. So this works, this feature is implemented as of that version. So I'm going to click on Old Terms. You can see it opens a new folder. And then I'm going to hold the Control button on my keyboard and click New Terms. So now I have both of these selected. Now I'm going to right-click one of them. Right? I'm going to right-click on my mouse, come down to where it says Compare Selected. I'm going to click that. You can now see that we have on the top of the top tab here, old terms.txt compared with new terms.txt. Now, right now, the formatting, the way it's displaying this is kind of a pain in the butt because the text is running off the edge of the page, which is no good for reading of the whole thing. So what you're going to want to do is open the command palette. Let's see if you can open that from within here. Edit, selection, view. Okay, if you go to view, first option is command palette. You can also see that by clicking Control-Shift-P on your keyboard, that will also open the command palette. What you're going to want to search for is toggle word wrap. So if it's not, I just did this before, but you type in word wrap, and that should come up very easily. I also have the shortcut set to Alt-Z. You're going to click that, and that is going to enable word wrap, where the lines, instead of just staying in one line and running off the page, they wrap back onto to display on a single screen. So now that we've done this, this is really all we need. We have succeeded. You can now compare the old with the new and see exactly what has changed. And as you can see in these terms, if you look on the right, there is a vertical or a little sliver that shows you a preview of where all of the highlights are. Well, that's all that's changed. And it's really and not even every paragraph is completely different. You'll see on this first paragraph here, what's changed is this word, explain. This document explained the rules. All there was a typo. It's supposed to say this document explains the rules. If we come over here, we see what was added. The brighter green one here is this S, and all that changed was they added an S to this paragraph. So that's all that changed. We scroll down, see here, there was a space that wasn't supposed to be there. It's supposed to be non-exclusive, worldwide license. You can see here, they fixed that. That's all that changed. Coming down again, here we see before they had double check, and they actually introduced an error and added a space where there shouldn't have been one. Following down further yet, this is, I had made an edit to, added a comment to the terms when I was reading through them in the PDF version, which I copied this from. So this is actually unrelated. They, what they did add though was a line about freelancers not being allowed to hire themselves and paying themselves. So you can see, you just go through and you can very quickly spot the changes that have been made from one version to the next. And many times when they make these updates, there's not a huge amount of changes. It's fairly minimal. Sometimes they do make, beefier edits, adjustments, but in this example, if I just did this, I would have very quickly seen, okay, there was like 3 things changed. And it took me no time to look at that, review it, say, okay, yep, that's what they did, carry on. So what I want to do now is, what if you don't have the text, the TXT file version to be able to do this comparison? What if you only have the PDF? I've got the PDF of the new terms and the PDF of the old terms. What if you only have these? Well, I'm going to show you how to convert the PDF. I'm not going to cover the HTML. HTML would be very similar as just copying it from the website, creating the text file in the first place. And I guess just start with that. The easiest thing to do if you're just starting, and if you can, just select, copy, and the text of the terms from the website directly, or from an HTML file that you have, and paste it into a text file. That's the easiest method. But if you happen to only have the PDF form of it, I'm going to show you how to take this and how to convert it into the text format nicely and quickly, using the power of Visual Studio Code with the multi-cursor tool and the replace all occurrences option. So I'm going to start by going into Visual Studio Code and creating a new file, right-clicking in a blank space up top, clicking New Text File, and I'm going to just go ahead and click Control S, or you could also click File, Save, and I'm going to save this as New Terms 2. You can see I have it plain text. I'm just going to add the .txt. Whoops, that's not txt. And click Save. So now that we have our text file created and saved, I'm going to switch back over to the terms, and this is the file for the new terms. So I'm going to open that PDF again. I'm going to go right to the top and make sure in whatever PDF viewer you have open that you're using, you want to make sure you have text selection enabled. You can see up in the corner here, that I have text selection. There's also a browse option where you can just move around, and this isn't going to let you select anything. So you want to make sure that you have text selection enabled, and specifically text selection, not area selection, not table, but text. Okay? Now, at the top of the document, you're going to press with your left, you're going to left click, basically, left click on your mouse and hold and drag down. You're just going to drag and hold it, and it's going to come all the way down. Might take a while. You might be able to press page down on your keyboard to speed it up. Yep, that's working for me. Page down, move your mouse, the selection catches up. Now I'm going to let go of the click and scroll up just to make sure I've got it all selected. I do. Now I'm going to right click on my mouse and click copy text, just like we did before on the website. Now I'm going to switch back over to Visual Studio Code, where we created that new text file for new terms. I'm going to right click and go down to where it says paste. So now we have all of the terms pasted in a text file, text format. Now I'm going to create a new file and do the same thing for the old terms that I have the PDF saved for. New text file, I'm going to save that as new terms 2, sorry, that would be old terms 2 dot txt, save, opening the old terms. You can also just click Control A. That's another wonderful other way to select everything. Control A to select it all. You'll see as I come down, everything is selected, which is what we want. Control C will copy it. The equivalent of clicking copy text. Just click Control C. Alt Tab will let you easily change between open programs, open windows, and then Control V will paste it all for you. Okay, so now I have both the old terms and the new terms. You can see if I scroll to the end, they're different. There's 279 lines in the new terms, 252 lines in the old terms. Okay, but if I was just to select old terms 2 and new terms 2 and do a comparison between these, I want to show you the problem. Old terms 2. Where's old terms 2? Have we not saved this yet? We have it open here. Okay. Old terms 2 and new terms 2. Both at the .txt form. Right click, compare selected. You can see, just by looking at the bar on the right there, there is a lot more changes than we saw before. The reason for this is that when you convert from a PDF to a TXT, to a text file, when you just do that copying that I showed you here, it's not copying. What it is doing is it's copying line by line. So every single line here ends up on its own line, on a new line, which means that as we look here, you can see every one of these has a new number, which is not what we want. We want lines where a sentence continues from one line to the next. We want that to be treated as one line. For example, here, and by we mean Upwork and our affiliates. So that's one sentence. That should be treated as one sentence. If I put a space here and then delete the line break, you'll see that it's able to run together as one sentence. And again, just for the sake of viewing, I'm going to go to View, Command Palette. Actually, we can just go straight to the bottom there. Wonderful. Click Word Wrap. So you can see as this wraps around, if I double click this, it now treats both these two different lines as one line, even though they're showing up on two different lines. But the problem with copying from a PDF just like this and pasting right into a text file is that it puts every line on a new line instead of allowing it to wrap around and continue from before, because the PDF file doesn't have that information saved. So I'm going to show you how we are able to convert this to a nicely formatted version of the text file. So it's going to be a little bit technical, but once you do it and learn it, you can just do it to anything you need. I'm going to begin by clicking right at the very beginning, before the first word. And for me, I'm going to be using the multi-cursor tool. The multi-cursor tool allows you to place multiple cursors all over the place, so that wherever there is a cursor set, when you make an edit, it changes every location that there is a cursor at the same time. So if I hit the space key on my keyboard, you can see it is adding a space to every place. If I add a tab, everywhere there's a cursor is getting a tab. So I'm going to Control Z to undo all of those changes. But that's the tool we're going to use. Now I'm going to click at before the first word to place my first cursor. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, or I'm just going to click it to the bottom of this preview bar. And I'm going to hold Shift and Alt on my keyboard at the same time. And I'm going to click at the first word of the last line. What that has just done is it has placed a cursor at the beginning of every single line in this document. As we scroll up, we'll see every line is blinking. Those are individual cursors. That's 252 cursors, because we see we're on line 252. Now, in order to do that, I'm gonna click away. I'm gonna go back up to the top, I'll show you again. Click before the first word. You see there's a blinking cursor. First word on the first line. I'm gonna come over to the right to the preview bar, go to the bottom. We're now at the bottom of the document. Last line. I'm going to click Shift Alt and hold both at the same time. And while I'm holding those, I'm going to left click at the beginning of the last line. And that places a cursor at the beginning of every line, a multi-cursor. Now, that shortcut may be different on your computer, your setup of Visual Studio Code. If you're using a Mac, Windows, those shortcuts tend to change. Essentially, if it's Shift Alt is not working for you, it might be Shift Control, it might be some other combination. You might have to look into that. Just look up multi-cursor shortcuts for Visual Studio Code on Mac or Windows, whatever you've got. But now that we have a multi-cursor on every line, what I want to do is this is going to be very keyboard heavy. I'm going to use a lot of keyboard here. I'm going to click the End button on my keyboard. It's typically above the arrow keys, below the home button, End. When I click End, it's going to move the cursor on every single one of those lines to the end of the line. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click Space one time. We've just added a space to every single line. Now, what I want to do is I want to press the Delete key. This is different from the backspace key. On the keyboard, the Delete key, on my keyboard anyway, on a traditional keyboard, the delete key is just to the left of the end key. And the backspace key is usually above the enter key. The delete key is just to the right of that in that little section of keys. Your keyboard might have a different arrangement. Find the delete key. We're going to click delete. What that has done is that has now removed every single line break in the document. Okay, so we added a space. First we put a, let's review what we did, okay? We copied everything in from the PDF or the HTML, probably the PDF, into the text file. Then I selected every line with the multi-cursor and clicked the end key to move the cursor to the end of every line. Then I pressed space, which added a space to every line, and then I clicked delete, which removed, sorry, I need to re-enable the toggle, which removed every line break. So this is where we are. You can now click away. We don't need that anymore. This is what we want. One big chunk of text. Now, what we're going to do to format this, and this works for the Upwork terms. I can't guarantee this is going to work for every terms, what I'm about to show you, because this is just the way that I found to edit these particular terms. You might have to have exercise some creativity in doing other terms. But the reason, the way I'm able to edit these is I'm going to look for the first place that it shows the number. Okay, so we have 1.0 or 1.nothing in this case. So I'm going to go to the period where the dot is. I'm going to place my cursor there, and I'm going to click to place the cursor. See, it's blinking. I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard, and with the left arrow key, I'm going to tap 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, because we are targeting this pattern very specifically. Now I'm going to right click on the first highlight that I have there. I'm going to come down to where it says change all occurrences, or you may have a keyboard shortcut set up for it. So when I click that, you can see it's going to immediately place a cursor at every instance of space 1 period. Now that we have all of those selected, I'm going to, without clicking anywhere, I'm just going to press the mouse, or I'm just going to press the left arrow key one time, which is going to take us to the space before the one. Then we click the arrow key, the right arrow key one time. Now that we have the cursor right before every instance of 1, and these are the chapter headings, the section headings, numbered, I'm going to press the enter key. What that does is it puts every section on its own line. Okay? So, I'm going to repeat this again for the 2s. You can see in this paragraph here, this is a continuation of the table of contents that got up to the 1s, and then you can see 2 is there, 3, 3.1, 4, and on and on. So we're going to repeat for the 2s. I'm going to select either with my mouse or with my keyboard the 2s, and there aren't many 2s in this document, so I'm going to right click, change all occurrences. We don't really see much going on. If we scrolled way down, we might see, yeah, see down here on the right, there is another 2, but there's only 1. So not a big change, but I'm going to do the same thing just for consistency. Hit left once, hit right once, puts us in front of the 2, hit enter, and that now puts 2 on a new line. Again, go to 3, select space, 3 period, right click, change all occurrences. You can see it grabs 3, 3.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and again on your keyboard, left arrow one time, right arrow one time, We're in front of all the 3's. Now press the Enter key to start a new line. We've done all the 3's. I'm going to repeat this process for the 4's. Oops. Need to change all occurrences. And then left, right, and new line. For the 5's, there's only one, but we're going to repeat this so we can get this one and the one below. Change all occurrences, left, right. There. And I'm just going to go ahead and separate out that line. So now what we have is we have all of these lines, all of these different sections, so 1.4, 1.4.1, they're all on their own line. So we don't have every sentence on its own line, but we have every paragraph on its own line. Now what we're going to do, remember how we had first added a space to everything before we first put everything on its own line? Well, that's going to come in useful here because it's still cramped together. It would be nice to just grab, to put an extra space between all of these, which I suppose we could have done when we were selecting the numbers in the first place, but this is going to let us do it anyway. So you'll notice that if I just pick any line, because they've all got the space, you can move your arrow key. There is just one space at the end of every line. I'm going to, you can either use your mouse or the keyboard to select that space and the new line character that creates the new line. Right click on that, change all occurrences. You'll see it affects every paragraph, which is what we want. I'm going to press Enter once and twice. Now this separates everything out onto its own line, all the paragraphs, which makes it nice and easy to see distinctly the paragraphs are separated out. And we don't actually want that necessarily for the table of contents, but it's not a big deal. Put the contents on its own layer, or its own line. And there's just one more thing that we could do here. You don't have to, but I like to, just for clarity. You can see that would have been the section header, and this is where the section begins. So I'm just going to drop that, I'm going to separate out the section header from the section content. So do that for 1, do that for 2, to do on Upwork. You can tell by the capitalized word. That was for 2, sorry, 3, which you're not allowed to do on Upwork. New line, that's 3, looking for 4. Enforcing our terms of use. You see there's a capital, new line, and then down to 5, definitions, new line. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And now we have formatted, we've converted our terms from a PDF where every line was stuck on its own line, which wasn't good for comparing, as we saw here. It's kind of looks like a nightmare to try to compare this way. But we have taken and reformatted the text so that every paragraph is truly together as its own paragraph. And we can now do this same process to the new terms. So you can see we've been editing the old terms. We're going to do this for the new terms as well. I'm not going to explain as much as I go through it. I'm just going to do it, but you're welcome to watch or skip right to the end. You'll notice here, I just went ahead and added that extra line breaks, so we didn't have to do that step later. I just clicked enter twice instead of once. Left, right, enter, enter. Selecting 031, right clicking, change all occurrences, left, right, enter, enter. Selecting space for period, right click, change all occurrences, left arrow, right arrow, enter, enter, and 5, right click, change, left, right, enter, enter. So we have basically done the same thing. I'm going to just also put the contents on its own line, come down, separate out the table of contents from the content itself. Again, first one, just on a new line, 1, 2, 2, and 3 immediately after. You're not allowed to do. Down to 4. If is capitalized, that's the first word of the section, and 5 definitions. So we now officially have both the old terms and the new terms have been formatted to look to be consistent and also easy to read. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the new terms. As you can see, it's already updated, but I'll just close that so that we have the old terms and the new terms that we've both formatted to be the same. And I'm just going to come back over here, click old terms, and holding control on my keyboard, old terms 2 specifically, new terms 2, control click. I've got them both selected. I'm going to right click one, come down, press compare selected. And now we have a page open in Visual Studio Code that has a comparison of the old and the new. And this is what you saw when I first started this video and showed you. I had already done this process to get to this point. So it's going to be exactly the same. Like just an S is missing. This document explained the rules. They had made a mistake. They corrected it in the new version. This document explains the rules. As we scroll down, again, we can see I added one extra space, or I omitted a space in one of them, a line I should say. Not a big deal. Keep scrolling. One space was added between them, and you get the drift. It's the same as it was before. That's all there is to this process. I know it can seem like a lot if you're doing this the first time. You've never used these tools, never used the multi-cursor, and I'm sure you can see it's a very powerful tool, very powerful system to use. I just wanted to make this to share what I do. I hate reading updates to terms and conditions just like everyone else. I think it's a good idea, but it is cumbersome. This really helps to reduce that load, and it would be nice if companies would just do this kind of thing automatically, save people the pain of having to do this themselves or just not read them at all. But now you know you can use this process for as long as these programs and tools are available. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I do hope this was helpful. And I hope it gave you a taste for the power of multi-cursor in Visual Studio Code. That is one of the most overpowered, wonderful text editing tools that I know about, without getting super technical with regular expressions and scripting and that kind of thing. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.